Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Learn with Jason. Today on the show, we are waiting for my API to load. Look at this. There it goes. What's up, everybody? All right, so we have David Nugent with us today, and we are going to learn about so many things that I'm just completely out of the loop on. So I'm actually really excited about this. But before we talk about that, let's talk about David. So for those of us who aren't familiar with your work, do you want to give us a little bit of a background on yourself?
Oh yeah, I mean, so we met years ago at like conferences and stuff. I used to run a lot of JavaScript conferences before that became socially irresponsible to get a bunch of people in the
Right?
same room.
Yeah.
I mean, even before it was pretty irresponsible to talk about JavaScript, but now it's even worse with COVID and everything. So, yeah, and then also doing developer advocacy for a bunch of startups. And for the last 3 years, I've been at a really big startup called IBM, which is we're up to like 350,000 people. I think we're going to go IPO soon. And we just acquired Red Hat a couple years ago for like $34 billion. And
Yeah,
so
that's startup. That sounds like a startup.
yeah. And
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I
yeah.
thought I should talk to Jason about Red Hat. That's what I thought.
IBM though is trying to get that startup vibe going. I remember I worked there years ago, and they had beanbag chairs and ping pong tables. Like they had all the boxes checked.
I was on the beanbag committee for a few years actually, and it was about $15 million,
Oh
and we
my
had
god.
quarterly meetings. And no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But you believed me for a second, didn't you?
I mean, the thing about companies at a large enough scale is that you could say that literally anything had a committee, and I'd be like, yeah, they probably did.
No,
um,
it's actually really fun, and I love that we've acquired Red Hat too because they have so many cool like products and like the open source ethos and everything. So it's a lot of fun for me to talk about.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And so one of the things that Red Hat brings is Openshift. And so Openshift is something that I really don't know anything about. So, like full disclosure, I once upon a time was a full stack dev. I would build and deploy servers, and then these last few years I've moved very much to the front end. The deepest I go now is I write a ton of serverless functions, but I don't really get into server deployments unless I have a very specific need. So I'm really out of the loop on, I don't really use Kubernetes. I don't really know how Docker containers work. I don't really mess with any of that stuff. So this is going to be a very new area of content for me. I'm really excited to learn about it.
No, that's awesome. I also don't know anything about it. I thought you were teaching me. How does this workshop work again?
Oh, this is going to go poorly for both of us. Okay, so let's get to Google.
I can't. Okay, to be honest, I'm not actually worried from the technical side. I'm just having trouble centering my head in the frame, but I think I'm getting there. I think we're going to be good. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, Kubernetes is something like a lot of people are probably using it, even if they don't know about it already.
Mm,
It's just taken over the world, right? And I'm an application developer myself too. Like I don't do very much DevOps stuff, and so I come at all this from I want to deploy a Java application or I want to deploy a JavaScript application, and so that's sort of like my intro to Kubernetes. And so one of the cool things about OpenShift is that it lets you deploy applications like super easily in like an enterprise environment.
hmm
I'm just going to ignore that.
thank you for the sub, Eco. Thank you for this. I saw Luke subscribed a little bit earlier. Thank you for that. Yeah, sorry, did I warn you ahead of time that this show gets real noisy? Like the chat is going to troll the ever loving bejeebus out of us. So just get ready.
I'm really glad for that though, because otherwise I just hate people taking themselves too seriously. But I wanted to say about the application. So normally, like enterprise companies pay for OpenShift so that they can manage their multi-cloud deployments, right? And it's a
Mhm.
product. It's not an open source project like Kubernetes is.
Okay.
And so there's license fees and stuff like that. But if you're like a startup or a big company and your application depends on Kubernetes, then you're happy to pay for it. So one of the cool things about the link that I sent you is that we actually do have this lab environment where we will give you a Red Hat OpenShift cluster for free.
Oh,
And
cool.
so
Yeah.
you'll actually be able to go in, spin up the cluster, deploy an application. You can actually deploy your own application if you want. It doesn't have to be the one in the lab. And then you can see it running on your Kubernetes cluster And so anybody in the audience, if they wanted to, could actually follow along and get their own cluster and deploy it. So that's one of the cool things about working in dev education and IBM. You just get to give people free stuff.
Yeah, that is a perk of the job, is kind of having the IBM size marketing budget.
I got lots of clusters. Who wants a cluster today?
Cluster Oprah over here. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, like, okay, so we know that like, I hear terms Kubernetes, I hear terms like cluster. When we're talking about, like, you said, if you're a startup, you'd be really happy to pay for this service, and I'd love to talk about why. So what makes, I guess, what's the purpose of a Kubernetes cluster in general? Why would one need that?
Yeah, no, like, I have a whole presentation with diagrams and stuff like that, but I'll just make little diagrams with my hands. So, like, I'm old, and when I was a youngin, you'd deploy an application by, like, putting it on a server. Mm-hmm. And then just running it on that server. But that was, like, super inefficient, because then what if nobody's using your application, or what if too many people are using your application? And you heard all the stories about startups, like in the 90s, like eBay, and they'd be like, too many people are using eBay. Like, we need to buy a bigger computer, but we can't buy a big enough computer. And so then they started getting into, like, virtualized deployments and stuff like that. But then you had a hypervisor and, like, dual operating systems. So it was pretty inefficient. And then containers came around, and it was like, wow, this is great. We could actually use the same, like, Linux operating system, but we could, like, securely constrain the resources so that one container can't modify the resources of another container. Mm-hmm. So super, super lightweight. And it also gives you this really nice separation of concerns between application developers like us and the people who do the real work, keeping the servers up and running, right? Like the DevOps folks, because as application developers, we care about the application, the binaries, like, are all the dependencies working? Is everything being pulled in correctly? And then from an operations perspective, they care more about, like, uptime and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Like, are the network ports configured correctly? So the container is a nice way to sort of, like, ship all of that data from one side to the other,
right?
And separate those concerns. So if you have infrastructure on your dev team side where you can actually build containers, and you have infrastructure on your ops side that can take those containers and deploy them, then you can end up with this really, really cool, really efficient infrastructure. So Kubernetes, it was a project, actually, it started out at Google, right? And they open sourced it. I think it was originally called Google Borg or something like that.
Borg.
They were like, that's a little too mean, So we'll call it Kubernetes. And that's, it means helmsman. It's like Greek for helmsman. And so if you see,
is it really?
Yeah, there's, like,
I
that
thought
logo.
that somebody had just, like, looked for a word they could trademark. They were like, let's just make up some sounds and trademark that. I mean,
it's probably both.
I'm also learning today how to pronounce it, because I've heard Kubernetes, Kubernetes. I prefer Kubernetes. Is a fun one. Kubernoodles, cuddle noodles.
I do tell people, if I haven't met them before, I always make sure to tell them that it's pronounced Kubernoodles, and just see how they react.
Yeah, cuddle netties. That's, yeah, we got.
Oh, cuddle netties.
Excellent. And this is also, if you've ever seen, if you've been, like, browsing technical content and you've seen the abbreviation K8S, that's, people are talking about Kubernetes when they use that abbreviation. Okay.
Oh, so absolutely not. That's something totally different, Jason. Why are you spreading rumors? No, that's right. Yeah.
Nubercoodles. Yeah, that's a good one too. Chat's got it going today. But so if we've got Kubernetes, and we know that Kubernetes is a way to take containers and kind of to maybe oversimplify this. If the original problem was we had an actual server machine in our office that we needed to hook up to send things out to the internet, and as our business got more popular, we had to have more machines to handle all of that incoming traffic, which is impractical and complicated. Kubernetes, so containers made it so that each machine ran exactly the same, and Kubernetes made it so that we didn't have to think about the machines themselves. They would kind of auto scale or contract when they weren't under load, so that we can say, I have this server image and I want this to run under any load. indefinitely without costing me $1 million. And Kubernetes is a way to say, or I guess without costing me $1 billion, because I guess you could have a $1 million deployment if you're a big enough company.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, if you are looking to spend $1 billion on Kubernetes, like, let me give you my card, because
I forgot how software sales work. You walk in and you're like, hey, I'd like to buy some software. How much does it cost? And the sales team is like, well, how much do you have? So Kubernetes.
You're totally right about that. The only caveat to that would be that, it actually, the problem that Kubernetes solves is pretty specific. And so a lot of the problems that you mentioned about, like, all the servers running the same code and the network being configured, like, there are whole ecosystems out there of other products that work with Kubernetes to still solve those problems, right? So one of the nice things about the project is that it's not like it tries to solve every problem. It tries to solve some very specific problems. And those problems are usually around, as containers became more and more popular, you started to see them more and more in production, and then you needed to orchestrate them and manage, like you said, I've got these hardware resources and I've got these containers that I want to run with this level of resiliency, and I've got this budget, right? I can't use more than this, CPU, this amount of RAM. How can I fit these? How can I do automatic bin packing to fit these containers in? So it definitely does all of that, but it doesn't do a lot of the other stuff, like, it doesn't define any application middleware. It doesn't do a lot of stuff with, like, logging or monitoring or alerting. There's actually a whole ecosystem of other tools that obviously works with Kubernetes, since it's like the standard, and all of those tools form this nice ecosystem. So one of the things that Red Hat OpenShift does to sort of, like, separate us from the Kubernetes open source project in people's minds, I guess, or, like, if I could do that, if I could separate it a little bit, is that they provide an opinionated stack. And the stack involves Kubernetes, right, on top of CoreOS, and then a bunch of extra features. So if you wanted to, say, run a service mesh, Kubernetes would be like, great, we've got one built in. If you want to deal with a particular CI/CD pipeline, or sorry, OpenShift would be like, we've chosen one for you. And so you can actually, even if you don't end up paying the license fee for OpenShift, you can actually learn a lot from the sort of, like, resources that OpenShift has chosen. And also, even if you don't use OpenShift, there is something called the Origin distribution, the Origin Community Distribution, OKD, which is on GitHub. And so that's also free and open to everybody.
Oh, well, that answers a question from the chat, which is, what is OKD? Excellent. Well, okay, so this is cool, and I see some new faces in the chat. Thank you all for showing up. It's good to see you here. So I think at this point we could talk about it, but honestly, we're starting to get into some conceptual layers, and there's only so many layers of an onion I can get into before I need to actually be able to look at it. So let's dive into this thing. So I'm going to switch us over into pair programming mode, and while we are doing that, I'm going to let's look at our live captioning. We've got Rachel here from White Coat Captioning today, who is writing down all the things we say, which is great for everybody except probably Rachel. So thank you, Rachel, for putting up with us today. And that is made possible through the support of our sponsors. We've got Netlify, Fauna, Hasura, and Auth0, all kicking in to make this show more accessible to more people, which we very much appreciate. And with us today on the show is David Nugent. If you are not following David on Twitter, you can head on over there and do that. Just don't do it.
Not worth it.
And we're going to be working with IBM Cloud a little bit today, but it sounds like we're starting here, which is with a kind of a starter kit that's going to let us jump right in. And this is the one that you wanted to work with here. Is this?
Yeah. Is this link shared in the chat?
I just dropped it in the chat. Yes.
Oh, sweet. Okay, nice. So yeah, I wanted to be able to share this with everybody as well as Jason. So first of all, the Credly link there that you're seeing, if you complete these 3 labs and do a little quiz at the end to make sure that you're paying attention and we're just copying off of Jason, then you'll get a little badge that you can share on your social media, or, like, tell your boss, so that if your boss is like, hey, how come you're just watching Twitch streams all day? You could be like, I earned a badge. Okay, back up. So you could do that here through the Credly link. And then also I wanted to gamify it a little bit because I know that Jason can, like lose interest and just sort of wander off and start checking his Slack and everything. So I wanted to have something to like keep his attention. So
it's true. I do wander off midstream. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to just click on this button here, and to do that, I can sign in with whatever. So does it matter what I use?
No.
Okay, I'm going to use GitHub, and I promise not to tell him that you didn't capitalize the H.
That's probably another trademark issue.
Okay, so we are signed into that. These things all match up, so I'm going to create my account.
Yeah, and so the idea with this, I mean, probably as a developer advocate for IBM, I should be encouraging you to sign up for an IBM account, but realistically, you could use any of these. I just want you to get through the labs, and then once you're registered, you should see this nice little site here, which is the challenge. And the challenge is you get these 3 labs that you can do, and there's also a leaderboard. So you can like earn points and get on the leaderboard. Personally, I don't care about that at all. But if you care about that, then like, yeah, go for it. But you'll see these blue buttons: Start Lab 1, Start Lab 2, Start Lab 3. So once you're signed in, you can actually click each one, and then it'll take a hot second to spin up a cluster. So I think you have to click Login to access again.
Launching my quick lab. I am not a robot.
This is the hardest part of the lab. Oh, you passed. Okay, good.
I was actually worried that they were going to ask me to identify photos of things. I am always like, sometimes they'll do those and it's like, identify all the pictures of boats. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm surprisingly bad at identifying boats in photographs, apparently, because I miss that one all the time.
Never going to make it to VP level at this rate, Jason. I mean, that's becoming a huge requirement of software engineering.
That's true. Boat identification is a large part of what I do in my day-to-day.
I'm going to see if I can endorse you on LinkedIn for boat identification. One time I was able to endorse my boss on LinkedIn for gluten intolerance.
Well, you can endorse for, is it still just open-ended? You can endorse for literally anything?
No, there was like a list, and gluten intolerance was in the list.
What an interesting skill to have. Okay, so I think we're in good shape here. So I have a standing rule on Learn with Jason, which is that whenever there's onboarding, but I also have somebody teaching me things, I refuse to read. So I'm going to make you be my onboarding instead. This
is actually really fun because normally in the lab, when I do these labs, I'm like, you can ignore most of the text, especially in the Java lab. Java is such a verbose language, and I think whoever wrote the lab really likes Java, so there's just like a lot of text.
Mm-hmm. Is this like an integrated VS Code environment too?
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah. So right. The important thing here is that you click continue.
All right, I have
Jason,
continued.
You're already at step 2. You're so good at this. You're not a robot and you're at step 2. This is amazing.
Yep. Turing complete over here.
So I think what you could do is you could hit terminal there in the upper right in your little fake IDE.
Terminal.
And do like new terminal. Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So the idea of this lab, the lab 1, right? Because there's three labs. There's like 3 ways to win big. As I don't know, is that like a mark? Am I being marketing-y enough now? So lab 1 is super simple, and it's basically I want to deploy an application that I've already written onto my Openshift cluster. And so remember, Openshift is running on top of Kubernetes. So when your application is deployed to Red Hat OpenShift, it's going to be running on Kubernetes. And so what if I had an application that was just sitting in a Git repo, right? It's sitting out there on GitHub, and I just want to deploy it as fast as possible. So there's this tool called Source to Image that allows you to do that. So using this environment, we'll actually clone it down to the local environment, as you have so adeptly written there.
Just started it, and now I'm going to move into it. Getting some comments. A solid one from Jess is underwater. 3 ways to win big with Kubernoodles. Very, very excited.
This is really great. If I don't get fired at the end of this, it'll be amazing.
And yes, this hat, I love this hat. I found this out at the Oregon coast, and I was very happy to find it. But I don't know how you can get one. You have to go to the Oregon coast, I guess. Okay, so now I'm in here. I'm in here, and what do we have? We've got we can cat our Docker file.
Yeah, you can if you want to. If you're like super interested in Docker files and stuff like that, you could take a look at the whole file. Is it interesting? I don't know. I don't particularly find it interesting, but you can kind of see some of the stuff that it's doing, right? It's saying like, I want a specific image. So, I mean, one of the things you'll probably be thinking as an application developer is like the code in the GitHub repo is just a tiny portion of, my deployment. I also have to tell it like, hey, I want you to run Node, or I want you to run this JVM or something. So one of the nice things about source to image and OpenShift is that they have all these different environments pre-configured. Mm-hmm. So you could just say like, hey, Node 10, do it. Right. And in the same way, like what directory do you want to be in? What commands do you want to execute? Right. You want to run npm install. So that's basically what this Docker file is telling it to do. Nice.
Okay. And so it's saying here we want to do OC new build. Now, what is OC? Is that
So OC is sort of like the command line equivalent to the sort of like, kubectl command. If you're like
cuddle control,
super good at typing. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. I like that one. Cuddle control is my favorite. I think like people argue about the pronunciation of that, but I think that kubectl is my favorite CLI command that exists.
Do you like cuttlefish, by the way? Like not as a snack, but as just like they're an amazing creature.
I do. Hold on. Okay, how much time do we have? I'm going on a tangent. Everybody get ready. I have a thing that I made. It was the first meme that I ever made in my entire life. And it was this one. Can I make that the right size?
Oh,
I sent that to my partner. Because look at that. Look how cute. Look how weird its eyes are. Anyways, yeah. Cuttlefish are cool. But cuttlefish, cube cuttlefish.
Oh yeah, now I should probably talk. Yeah, so so there's this command. There's this command that reminds me of cuttlefish, and so OC is sort of like the OpenShift equivalent. And one of the cool things about these labs, right, is that you've got OpenShift, and you can use your command line if you want to be cool and pretend that you're not just sitting and wasting time on a Twitch stream. But there's also the Openshift Console, which is this user interface that you can use to interact with your OpenShift deployment. And there's actually a tab up there that you can click if you want to explore that. I mean, you might as well, right? I think it'll pop up another window.
Okay, here we go.
And so it's like two ways of interacting with the exact same cluster, same node, same applications, same everything, except that this is the user interface, like the visual way to do it. And then on the command line, we're sort of doing the command line thing. So when you, like, for example, go in and create a new image on the command line, you could see it reflected in real time through this user interface.
Got it. Okay.
And you can see on the left, there's like a ton of UI, right? Operators, workloads, networking, all this stuff. If you scroll back up to the top of that list, there's administrator. And if you click on that, you could change that to developer. So there's two like contexts, I call them, two ways of looking at the application. And so as you deploy more applications, as you create more endpoints and stuff, you'll actually end up with this little like directed graph here. It's the topology view, they call it. And you could like scroll around and zoom in and out like Google Maps style. And see all of your different applications, see their status, when they're deploying, when they're redeploying, all that stuff. And so when we're in the command line, this isn't part of the lab, this is just something I thought was cool. When we're in the command line and we start creating stuff, you'll actually see it be reflected in this topology in real time, which is
nice. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, so I'll keep that open so we can play with it. And so I've copied this command in here, which is it's gonna do a new build, which
new build, we're going to use the Node 10 image and we're going to call it example health. So you'll actually see that in the so you could run that. You'll actually see that in the UI. And so let's just scroll down a little bit more in the lab.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
And it'll say like, it should look like this. And you're like, yeah, it is. Okay, cool. And then you'll run that OC start build command for example health.
Just going to copy that so nobody has to watch me type.
Love it. Yeah, so the nice part for me from the user interface side is, first of all, sometimes you like to just click around so that you don't make some typos. But also, if there's people interacting with your cluster who aren't necessarily super command line oriented, they can actually get access just to certain parts of the administrator context. So they can go around, create users, stuff like that, and you don't have to worry about them accidentally removing one of your deployments or something.
Okay. All right. And so it's doing stuff.
And so all this stuff also, if you go back to the UI, you might actually be able to see it building at this point.
Here it goes.
You got example health. So if you go back to our you can feel free to click around wherever you want. It shouldn't affect anything. It's mostly just sort of like read only. Not creating it yet.
I think it's still doing stuff over here.
Still doing stuff.
I think we're waiting for, it's not actually pushing the layers yet. Oh, dang, what just happened? Oh, Benjamin Codezen. Thank you very much for the gifted subs, and welcome everybody to the Boop crew. Remember, now you have access to the Boop emote, which means that you can cause complete and utter chaos if you so choose. And remember, with great power comes great responsibility, because if you start a Boop drop and you don't finish it, a corgi gets sad. So anyways, that's this is okay. Storing signatures, things are happening now. Hey, what's up, Prince? How you doing?
Oh, there are a lot of boops on the screen now. I should mention that
my bucket.
You don't need to subscribe to this is unrelated to your Openshift license. So if there are any enterprise customers of IBM watching here, this is not something that'll happen to your application. It's purely a Twitch thing.
Oh, yes, that is fair.
If a VP in my organization is watching right now,
the boops have nothing to do with
nothing's going wrong. It's all planned.
Wait a minute, I thought we were going to teach IBM things. They're talking about boops and cuddles and what's going on here?
The IBM Cloud Boop is the most resilient boop on the internet.
I don't know why I just pictured this, but I pictured your skip level SVP as being like the chief of police from a children's cartoon, where he's like, "Damn it, Nugent, what's going on out there?"
I should mention, I'm just kidding. They're very supportive, but I am also a little scared.
All right. So now we're copying config. Yep. Oh, hey, push. There we go. All right. Now we should see this out here, right?
Now you if I reload. Now you should probably see something on your topology, hopefully. You are also looking at a specific project, I believe.
Am I? I don't actually know what I'm doing here, so
it's okay. Let's just go back to the lab. I don't want to confuse anyone too much.
All right, yeah, let's go back to the lab. Here we go. And we're not deployed yet.
Yeah, so now we'll want to actually deploy the application. So this is normally, if you go through the UI, this is like a one-step process. It's multiple steps on the command line, because you get more flexibility to change it up and make mistakes. But it wouldn't be one of these shows if I wasn't baiting Jason into making typos and causing chaos.
Okay, so now we've got. Did it work now? There it is. Okay, we had to deploy it first, and now we've got ourselves an actual topology. And look, it's got an arrow. I don't know where that arrow goes.
If you click on it, you should get a little bit of context. It should tell you the current state of the application.
Cool.
Yeah.
And we got logs. We got an overview. This is nice.
Yeah, not bad. If you do go back to and so one other thing I should mention is, like, the cluster that we're assigning to you, it's like a full-fledged cluster. You can go in, you could go through all the context menus, you could deploy applications and everything, but it's not super powerful. And that's just like a resource consideration on our end. I think you get 2 nodes or something like that.
Sure.
If you were running this in like an enterprise environment, you could have thousands of nodes, and they'd be across multiple clouds and all that stuff. So,
okay.
And so now what you can do is you can actually expose a route to the outside world so that people could actually use your application.
Okay.
I find that takes a certain amount of confidence in your coding and deployment ability. Sometimes
I have the utmost faith in my ability to copy paste.
Sometimes I like to keep my applications to myself, just running on my own laptop and not let anyone access them. But once you do that, you get a big host and port number there that you can actually copy. Actually, anybody could copy this. It's now running.
And so
publicly.
this will get us out to look at it go, demo health. Look, chat, you can go look at, everybody go look at my cluster.
This is a quite dull application, but it is a node application that's running on a node 10 environment in Jason's cluster that he was assigned as part of this lab. And if you go back to the lab, there is actually a
oh, interesting. It's telling people that that it's not available. I wonder if this might be Twitch doing something weird with the links too, because sometimes it'll break up long links.
Oh, interesting. I wonder if it has something to do with the port number.
Oh, if you go HTTPS, it's not going to work. So remove the S because we haven't added a certificate yet, and that'll take you to the app. But it's not going to have a cert yet.
And I believe that there's some login information in the lab, so you can actually log in and see all of Jason's his private health information. Admin and test.
Admin and test. Okay, let's try this. Let's go in and poke at it.
So there's all sorts of UI test. For Jason. You could change his blood pressure. You could turn off his pacemaker. You can.
Please don't. Hey, what's up, Alex and the front end horse crew? All of you, we're playing with Openshift today. I just deployed my own cuddle noodles, and we're looking at it now.
We saw Jason's like marginally work safe meme of a cuttlefish.
That was completely work safe.
I think it's work safe sending it to your partner. But if you sent it to my skip level VP,
they would be very confused. Right,
but yeah, enough. So I mean, the idea of this is that it was just super straightforward, right? Like you just copied a few commands. If you actually went through the interface, you can deploy it yourself. Actually, do you mind if we sort of skip out of the lab and just go into the interface and you could see how that works?
Yeah.
So if you go to, I believe it's add over there on the left.
Okay.
So you can see that you can add applications in a ton of different ways. The way that we were doing it is from Git, but you could do it, from a container image that you've got. You could say like, hey, here's a link to Docker Hub. I want to deploy this application. But if you click on from Git, you'll actually see there's a UI that corresponds to a lot of the commands that we were using before, right? So like, what's the Git repo URL? What kind of builder image do you want to use?
Right.
And then if you go even farther down, there's tons and tons of other sort of things that you can do. Right down there at the bottom, there's all those links for like routing, build configuration. If you click on each of those, you get even more configuration options. So it makes it really easy to, if you just want to see like, hey, how can my application that I'm writing today deploy to Kubernetes, makes it super, super simple.
Mm-hmm. And what I do like is that you did abstract away that stuff that you don't have to fill out, instead of just showing me 10 million forms and being like, well, it's up to you to figure out which one of these is required. Yeah. So that's nice that, by default, I can throw in a Git repo and choose my image, like choose the node image, and then just fill out some basics, and it'll kind of go.
I still remember working at a university, and there was a guy who his whole job was maintaining this Windows application that he wrote. And the whole thing, it was just like a rectangle of a ton of checkboxes and like acronyms and pull downs. And, like you had to get everything set exactly correctly. Mm-hmm. And it was terrible user interface, but it was great job security. I mean, he worked there until he wanted to retire.
But so doing that like this, we did this using the CLI. And for everybody who just joined, what we're actually doing here is we're doing this lab here. So I'll link to the resources for everybody who just joined. But we're doing this lab right here of completing a series of 3 labs. This is lab 1. And what we've done is we've deployed this Node app, and this Node app is running in a Docker container on a Kubernetes cluster that is powered by Openshift via IBM and Red Hat.
Yeah, sponsored by Netlify, captioned by White Coat Captioning.
Right, I think we got it all.
Jason Legstor with a hat that he found on the Portland coast. Or the Oregon coast.
Yes, narrated by David Nugent.
Special guest David Nugent, who marginally understands what's going on right now.
But I mean, so what, we took probably 10-ish minutes in between screwing around to get this whole app up and running. It's functional, and it's, we've got this dashboard over here that we can see of what our applications are. So like, here's our running app. This is pretty slick stuff. Like we've got good information here about what's going on. We can see that it's running. We have a quick jump to the logs. So as far as getting an app up online, if I need to build a Node service, this seems like a pretty straightforward way to get that up on the internet.
Yeah. I think, if you're looking for ease of use, you'll probably end up using another solution, just because OpenShift, the real value is if you have, this app running in a multi-cloud environment and you want to manage all of those, resources, or if you have a bunch of microservices that are communicating together and you want to deploy all those. So this, I think the point of this exercise was to show, even though this thing is super powerful, it still is this easy to deploy one extra application, right? So your 1,001st application.
Right. And a question in the chat is this similar to Heroku? And it sounds like this is enterprise flavored Heroku.
Yeah, I love Heroku, right? And it's super, super cool. I would say for each, I'm not going to say one is better or worse.
Sure.
But I would say the difference between them is that Heroku is also super developer focused, right? Makes things really easy for developers who are trying to deploy applications. OpenShift also allows a lot of flexibility for that sort of like developer focus, but also with a lot more flexibility of running it on multiple clouds. So you could run it on your private data center. You could run it on IBM Cloud, Azure, AWS, GCP, one of the international providers. You could run it on the edge. You could run it on your local device, right? And you could actually manage all those deployments from this console. So it's kind of like your own personal, developer focused Kubernetes platform. So in that sense, it's nice because you're not really tied into any vendor. This particular one that we're running just has 2 nodes that are running on IBM Cloud, but that's just because I can't get free stuff on GCP and AWS. I mean, it's free, right? It works great. Let's do it. But once you get OpenShift, you can deploy it wherever you want. And a lot of our customers have, like financial services companies, and they're like, this particular data has to be on our servers on this continent in this regulatory framework.
Right. Yeah.
This other data is, endpoints for our iPhone application, and that can be syndicated anywhere. Anyway, sorry, I hope that wasn't too like enterprisey and boring.
No, I mean, I think it's important to understand like why, I think the thing that gets challenging, especially as you start to scale up in businesses, is understanding like, why would somebody move from a free service or a cheap service? Like I've got a $5 a month DigitalOcean droplet. What is the reason that my business would move from that to the $10,000 a month, $50,000 a month, $1 million a month, like deployments? Why would you spend that much on ops? And there is a reason for that. And it is that as things scale, they get so much more complex to manage. And so typically you start paying for the orchestration, the management, the service agreements, like somebody who's willing to respond to your email at any time of day, and the guarantees of that availability of multi-cloud. Like this is actually something that, like, one of the big things that Netlify does is we put content on a multi-cloud CDN so that if AWS has an outage, your website stays up. And that's the sort of stuff that's why people pay. Right? Like that's what you're paying for, is dependability and easier management. And so I think it's worth having those conversations about the differences between like the cheap thing and the enterprise thing, is because it it starts to be less about, well, this runs an app and that runs an app. And it starts to be a lot more about, okay, this runs an app, but what happens when my $1 billion business depends on this app and something goes wrong?
By the way, I'm really excited to see how Netlify has grown, because I used to hang out at that office all the time when it was like a much smaller company. And I've been using Netlify since you had to go down the hall to use the toilet. Like that's how long I've been a customer. So yeah.
We don't even have an office anymore. We've gone fully remote. Netlify is now a 100% remote company.
No toilets. You're full circle.
You got a toilet in your own house now, because that's where you're working from. So, but you don't have to share it with anybody unless your family is.
I did see that note. You don't have to share a toilet with anybody on your careers page. And I was confused. So thank you for clearing that up for me. It's a weird marketing standpoint, but I respect it. No,
Indeed.
Cool. And I saw somebody was asking in the chat, are there system requirements to run locally? Yeah, there are. It's actually pretty lightweight, because you're just running Kubernetes on top of CoreOS. So you can, as of OpenShift 4.7, you can actually run on edge devices, which tend to be more power constrained, resource constrained. So they're definitely moving in that direction.
Nice. Okay, well let's keep on trucking then. We got about 45 minutes left, and let's see how far we can get. So
we're pretty much done with step 2, and I think step 3 is just like if you want to run some commands to spin down your application because your cluster is not super powerful. And so when we start getting into the microservice stuff, it's nice to have all of your resources to yourself.
Okay.
So you could run cleanup.sh.
I'm just going to copy paste commands, all of these, and boom, 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 gone. And the last one, done. All right, and there it is. It's out. So now we don't, and that was nice in real time. Like I thought I had to refresh the page, and apparently I didn't have to do that. So now this is lab 1. We've completed lab 1.
You've completed lab 1. Congratulations. You're 1/3 of the way to getting your badge, which I know is your only real motivation for doing this, Jason. So I appreciate you paying attention.
Look, I'm not showing up here to learn. I'll tell you that much. No, this is great. So now we've walked through the basics. We had an existing Docker container. We had a Git repo. We got that thing stood up and deployed, and we were able to look at it on the web. So this one, it looks like we're going to do a RESTful, like an API.
Yeah, this is sort of like a microservice based application. Oh, this is the hardest question.
Thank goodness.
Thank God,
there's still no more boats.
No whammies for lab 3.
Okay, so now here we go. We've got our environment. I don't care about that.
No, I don't care about
you
that.
are my onboarding.
There's a lot of stuff in this lab, just to be totally honest with you, that I simply don't care about. So maybe I'm not the best person to give this lab, but some of it still is important. So you can clone this. I think that one's important. So anybody out there watching, if there is anybody watching, I'm actually not sure because I'm just looking at Jason in a Zoom meeting. Does anybody actually do like Java development? Because this one is actually using microservices in a Java development environment, and it uses Open Liberty, which is this microservice framework for Java.
Chat, can we get a J in the chat if you use Java? We're gonna get like 2 J's. This is mostly front end stream for sure.
Or if they don't use Java, could we get a sad face because now they have to watch some people program in Java?
All right, we got some Java users. There's one.
Okay, yeah. So it's kind of cool. Like they're taking this. I use the Java scripting language. That's good. Yeah.
J and also sad face. Oh, good. All right, I'm just continuing to skip over everything here.
Yeah, seriously, just keep going.
So I don't need any of this. I'm just.
I feel like we've absorbed it through osmosis.
Okay.
So
all right. I'm here.
That's fine. Yeah.
All right.
And so as anyone who's worked with Java knows, you've got, your language, but then on top of that, you've got your framework, and then on top of that, you've got your, build environment. There's so much stuff. So there's lots of details in this project, sort of walking you through how each of these is configured. But if we walk through each of them, then it'll just take forever. So I think it's more interesting to just talk about what we're changing.
Okay.
And so there's a few things that you need to change. So you just need to separate the overview steps from the stuff you actually need to change. So this one actually says update the POM config file. So you've got it open. And then I think it says add the above to the properties section, and a new line at the end, add a new line at the end of line 21. And so
I'm just dropping this right in here.
Yeah.
And we're giving it a context root of Liberty project, which is not currently existing here, but I assume Java knows what it's doing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that seems right.
So I think you want to.
Okay, so I'll save that one.
Yeah,
and then Docker finish source main Liberty config.
I should mention XML. Java developers get paid by the subdirectory, which is why you see a lot of these really expansive.
Okay.
Yeah. So this was probably written by a senior developer.
And now this is one of those things that teasing Java aside, the reason that Java does this is because Java's it's library dependent, right? So everything is like organizing your files is actually a big part of making Java usable, because you have to include everything.
Right. Yeah. And then the paths map to a lot of the text that you write in the includes in your code. And so I think this one, update the server config file.
Yeah. So I'm just
14.
Yeah. Just adding that there. And that gets us to
the context root is the same there, Liberty project. So I think we'll be using that later when we actually test the project.
Got it.
And then you can save that one.
Okay, so let's move into finish. And I'm there. You can tell I'm there. All right. Now
I like that step. Move into finish and make sure you ran that command.
And so MVN is MVN short for Maven?
Cuttlefish?
Yeah.
No, it's Maven. That's right. Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna do Maven.
I know Maven. Yeah. See, that's how I feel about it too. This is
I don't
why
know
I
what
use
Maven
JavaScript.
is. So is Maven like a build tool for Java?
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, it's building. I can look at it go. Oh, it's going so fast.
Is it though?
We're moving along.
I never know
with
Java stuff. I'm sorry. I used to be a Java developer, and so I still have a very snarky, caustic attitude about Java. I love it. Right? It's great, but I feel like sometimes I need to take the piss out of it a little bit.
Yeah, you got to laugh at your pain or else you'll cry, right?
Yeah.
So and that's me and all the code I write.
Except your hat. I mean, that's just all smiles at that hat. That's an amazing hat.
Also didn't write the code for this hat, so somebody else wrote the code for this. I can be proud of that.
Jason, are the number of people watching going down as the Maven build gets farther
cratering? Everybody's like, all right, time for lunch.
Oh my God, I love this so much.
Okay, so as we are letting that run, we're going to see this.
So yeah, the downside to this lab, I'll ruin the surprise for you. Is the upside is that it's really cool. Microservice framework, Java, running open Liberty, open source, great, love it. The downside is that the actual application that's being deployed is something that looks into the system properties, takes a bunch of data, and relays it back as a RESTful response to your endpoint call in JSON. So at the end of this lab, it's not going to be like a really cool example health Node.js application where we can mess around with JSON's vital signs. It's going to be a big JSON blob of boring system properties. So I want to set the expectation low because even though it's really cool infrastructure wise, at the end it's like, a JSON message that might be an error message. Sweet. So
that's okay. We're gonna be okay. I'm ready. So now I'm gonna click the launch application.
Yes. And then you just want to make sure that your port is correct. And I think it wants you to
Ready
put
to
in
run.
9080 there.
Oh, 9080. Right. I told you I wasn't going to read.
Don't do it, man. It's a slippery slope.
Open this one.
And you've got your
Oh,
sort
this
of
is a
like
fun graphic. I like that.
base page.
They
So this
seem
is
so unconcerned about what's happening. This is maybe not the moment to be chill. Okay, so then I'm going to go to, it looked like there was a route that I wanted to hit. So let's hit that route.
You'll copy that and append it to your thing there.
Okay. And this is our data about our thingy.
This is your super boring JSON file that I was promising you. So,
but it's good. So it shows we can see our Java spec. See, we're looking at. You can see that it's on IBM. You can see where the vendor came from. Yeah, there's behold my bucket. Exactly. See, the chat's into this. No, I like it. I like. I mean, being able to see this stuff. The fact that we were able to get this up and running, and
but Jason, we are only one step into lab 2.
There are more steps. Okay, so now I run MVN Liberty.
You could do Control
stop.
C. Yeah.
There it goes. Okay, MVN Liberty. Oh, from entering into another. I don't need to do both. Okay.
So now you can click continue. And you can see we are on step 4 of 5.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so let's do MVN package. And what does this do? I don't know. Let's just run it.
This gives you time to go get a soda, just like every Maven command. No, I'm sorry. I should really. We have a lot of Java customers. I should really stop writing Java all the time.
You're gonna just get some very grumpy emails from the Maven maintainers, like, "How dare you?"
Okay, I apologize in advance if any Maven maintainers are on the stream, and when you finish typing that email in like 3 or 4 days, which I assume is how long it's going to take you based on how long it takes Maven to do anything, I will apologize via email.
Wow, couldn't even get through the apology without shade. Oh my goodness. Oh, geez.
Is anyone hiring a developer advocate, by the way? I know OpenShift and Kubernetes. And
he just became available.
Maven. My boss tells me I no longer work there. Thank you. Okay. Yeah.
Jeez. All right. So now I'm going to use the OpenShift cluster command to build our REST app. So effectively what we did before was we just kind of like ran it ourselves. We were doing local development. Right. And what we're doing now is we are saying we actually want to deploy this on OpenShift.
Let's actually ship it. Yeah.
Okay, so let's ship it. I am shipping. Here we go. I have shipped. All right. So then we're going to start it. Okay. And so that's just OC start, and we're saying where the start directory is. It's the home directory. And here we go.
And as you remember from the previous time, each of these steps takes a minute. And also, I should mention a lot of this waiting time. Some of it is just because of the resource constraints of these free clusters that we're giving you. If maybe if Netlify could pony up a little more money, we could give them 3 node cluster. But since
but it's a factor of the memory and the stuff on the machine. So effectively, the more we pay, the more power the machines have or the nodes have that we use.
So I think for this particular task, it's not particularly resource intensive, but it's just constrained by the really constrained amount of resources that we've given you in the cluster. But yeah, generally, I mean, even most of the time when we do a lab, we'll do like 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 nodes. And so it looks like you are in your get builds. Nice. And so you can scroll down a little bit, hopefully.
Down to here, it looks like it's supposed to look. This will give us logs for it, right?
Yeah. And so the log should end with push successful message, and it might take between 2 and 3 minutes to complete. Excuse me. So
this is just us like tailing the process.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is another good time to get a beverage, do like one of those boop showers, share more of your not safe for work cuttlefish memes. There's all sorts of stuff. Jason's like, where's the command to get Dave off the screen?
Just kick. Yeah. But yeah, okay. So this is and Chris does bring up a good point. Like it's all fun and games, but it has to be done with love. Like you can't make fun of like a project maliciously, right? Like it's
that's really that's a good point. And I want to say that I am saying all this in jest, and yeah, I would feel terrible if somebody who's actually maintaining one of these projects took offense, especially because each of these projects is working for hundreds of thousands or millions of developers out there across the planet, and for every one person who says, oh, it's a little bit slow, there's a ton of people who want to make sure that it works on different platforms and in different languages,
right,
and works with different versions of the JVM, and works with different deployment models, and works with different infrastructure, and so it has to take all of that into account. And then plus a lot of these projects are open source, so some of the maintainers aren't being paid as part of their day job, or they perhaps aren't being paid at all, or just being paid through community contributions. So yeah, I definitely don't want to come across as a total jerk.
No, it's fun to tease, right? But there's a line, and I think it's just important to remember. Like we love to code. Like we're here because we enjoy coding. Like nobody's watching this show because they're like, man, I hate coding. Like this is a place where you go if you like to code, if you want to learn about coding. And so there's for at least as what I hope the chat will take away from this is it's fun to joke about our own pain. And then we just don't want to cross that over into being mean to the maintainers themselves. Like they do a ton of work. A lot of them don't get compensated for it. And so we want to make sure that they feel the love from us, we should never make them feel bad for doing work. Because like you said, there's so many considerations there.
Thank you for bringing that up, Chris. I appreciate that.
Oh, hey, and we're done. Perfect. You know what? That was like such a good, and now let's take a moment to remember all the people in open source that we need to take care of.
It was. Absolutely.
But yeah, okay, so perfect. So we are now, we've pushed, and we are at the next step, which is this just starts it? Or
yeah, so you're going to create your new application.
Okay.
And so this is the thing that'll get it popping up into your topology view.
Ah, yes. And now I'm going to
you're going to expose the routes so that everybody can can view the app on your cluster. And yeah, sweet. And so now if you do your OC get routes command, you should see what the route actually is.
And it all happens so fast here. Okay, so here is our route. Okay.
Yep. I think you have missed an R at the beginning there, but that's
no,
okay.
I'm going to need that. Okay. Let's get to, oh, no. Sorry, I'm doing this wrong. So I need, give me that R. And then I'm going to go to .cloud, and then I want to go to /REST Quick Lab.
I believe that's right.
Okay.
I think
I did it wrong.
I think it's longer than that. You want to go back to the lab? I think you can
REST
get
Quick
some
Lab
instructions there.
Oh, okay. All right, here we go. This one. Your app URL will look like this. And then REST Quick Lab. No, that's what I got.
Yeah, you got that. But then you want to go to /Liberty project. Do you see that farther down?
Oh, I misunderstood. Okay, so this route is not.
That's yours. That's just the base for your.
I understand. Okay, so I'm just. Go to Liberty project. Okay, and then in here, go back to the lab.
It should tell you. There you go. System properties new.
Properties new. Hey, there it is again.
So this should be actually the system properties of your console, of your Openshift cluster that you were actually able to that we're pulling that data from, right? So we took that
Right.
same application that you were running in your little Visual Studio environment, and we shipped it over to your cluster, and then now it's getting the data from that cluster.
Yeah. 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 No, that's so we've now, and I think if we can go back to our topology, and there it is, we've got our REST Quick Lab. We can see it. We can look at our logs, like all sorts of good things going on here, right? So this is pretty powerful stuff. Like I'm pretty excited to see just how, because here's the thing that I think is important to note here. If you are a developer, if you're a Node developer, Java developer, whatever, building the service locally is your job. Getting that service up onto the internet has, in my experience, you end up needing to go through a backend team and a DevOps team and a bunch of other teams to all get that stuff actually through to the finish line. And part of that is just necessary. You want safeguards. You want people checking on your stuff and doing quality checks. But part of it is just that, like, it falls so far outside of the job description. I remember being at IBM, I was hired as a front-end developer, and in order to get a front end onto the internet, we had to get the front end into a Node microservice, into a Docker container, into a Kubernetes cluster, and then up onto our deployment into production. And what tools like this do is take some of that out. We can kind of use a pre-configured, look, just get it up on the internet. And here we are now, without me having to understand how Kubernetes works, without me having to understand the intricacies of doing the like, there are words that I don't even know what they mean, connection pooling and stuff like that. Like, though I don't know what those are, I don't want to know what those are. That's not my job. But I do want to be able to put things up on the internet without having them fall down or cause me a bunch of pain or get me in trouble, get me paged, stuff like that. So yeah. I think the thing that's exciting about tools like this, especially if you're trying to build backends right now, is like, if you want a backend to go up and just work, this is a great tool for making that problem it just goes away. You just get to deploy the thing, and then you just look at your dashboard and go, is it up? Oh, good, it's up. And then you go on about your business.
I definitely love the topology view too, because, once you start getting more microservices up there, just having one step way to see, which ones are currently deploying, which ones are, up, which ones are having issues.
And presumably, great. Like, I'd get a red X here if it was down, right? So I'd be able to see very, very quickly, like, which of my services are unhealthy right now.
And you'd be able to dig into it, or, potentially somebody in your supervisory chain, or somebody else who might not necessarily be super familiar with the command line. So it's great to allow a lot of people to get information about and access the system without being more dangerous than they're allowed to be.
This is great. And I could just rebuild it too. Like, if it crashed, I could just be like, just build it again.
Yeah, all of that information is in there.
That's really nice. Okay.
Do you want to see if we're finished with lab 2? I think the only other thing to do is
clean up after ourselves, right?
Yeah, clean up after ourselves.
Oh wait, here we go. Did I do this stuff? Where am I? Pod. So troubleshooting. Oh, so if we wanted to see how things are breaking, which they're not currently, we could do all of those things. And in like get pods, that's kind of that's similar to if you're using like Cuddle Control, right? Yeah. Cube Cuddle, whatever it is. Cuddle Cube. Then these we're not going to need. So let's continue. Nice work. I did it. Haha. So let's get back here.
By the way, if anybody is following along and wants to do the badge, it may help to actually have the questionnaire. There's sort of like a quiz at the bottom after lab 3. It may help to have that questionnaire up as you're completing the labs, because sometimes it wants you to copy and paste some data from the lab into the quiz. So if you are actually interested in getting the badge, that's one way to do it. Pull up the quiz, and then as you're completing the labs, you could fill in the answers. But I feel like Jason already has his favorite badge, which is the flag on his hat, and so he probably doesn't need the Build Smart on Kubernetes badge. But we can
all right,
start
so
on lab 3.
We've got about 20 minutes. Is that enough time?
To be totally honest, every lab that I've done, every time I've done this lab, I always schedule an hour, and in 1 hour, we're only able to get through the first two labs. So I literally have no idea how long lab 3 is going to take. I've
Great.
done it. I've done it before, but not in this environment. Yeah.
Should take you approximately 30 minutes. Okay, we're gonna have to go faster than that. So let's go terminal, new terminal. We're doing a speed run, everybody. Strap in. Cue the. We need like danger music. How do I get? Oh, I need that. Okay, somebody go find me royalty-free danger music so that I can make that happen. That sounds like so much fun. Okay, let's go into our model prediction. And so this one we're going to do object detection, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah. So we have this thing called.
It's not danger music. Okay, max object detector microservice. So is this a Watson
This is actually
thing,
a machine
or?
learning model that we have this model asset exchange online where we have a bunch of useful models that you could just download and use.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, this is what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking one of those models and training it, giving it some data, and then seeing what happens.
Okay, great. Let's oh wait, here, this one. So I've opened my console. If the administrator's view, switch to the developer view, I'm there. Let's go. Let's see, organizes related services. I'm ready. Okay, so to do that, we're
So
gonna use we're using the thing.
Yeah, we're using the UI to do this part. So
Okay.
nice that we did a walkthrough of the UI already, and we're actually not going to be using a. I think we're actually going to be using an image. Oh gosh, and actually, I hope that we're able to get this image because if I remember right, this is from the Code8 team, and I don't know if they've paid for premium Docker Hub subscription, so I think the number of images from their repo is throttled. So fingers crossed that we can get this image.
Okay, let's find out. This one.
Nice.
Okay. Does it matter what I call it? I can just
I think you can call it whatever you want.
view the deployment. Fine. General. Name is pre-populated. Yeah, I can just leave all that. So we'll do a deployment. Thank you for gifting a sub. And thank you for subbing. I appreciate it. Jess is underwater. Doing a deployment. And advanced, we're going to create a route. Okay. So under create a route, there it is. Good. Oh, it didn't actually like open that.
Oh, if you click on routing there.
Routing. Got it. Okay. Host name, path, target. Those all seem right. Okay. And then click the deployment link. And we are just setting cores enabled to true, looks like.
Nice.
All right, because we don't want to argue with cores today. And I think
just
the
Maven open source team.
Scaling, replicas 1. Okay.
Nice.
Resources, we want to have 2 and 2. 2, 2.
And I think it's GI, not MI.
Oh, I gotta like. Okay. Glad you caught that. I definitely wouldn't have. Click create. All right. AMDev, you got a sub. Make sure you boop it up. Okay, look at this thing go.
I'm gonna watch another
friend. I love it. I love it. That's what this stream is all about. Making friends. Dropping boops. Okay. Doing
a lot of times if it gives you an error that says image pullback off, it just means that it's currently in the build process. And so it's an error just because it's not reporting its status yet. So if you just leave it alone for a second, Jason. Jeez. No, I'm just kidding.
Give it a second. It's going to space.
But yeah, if you go back to the lab, does it want us to do anything else, or does it want us to just wait until it's
Let's
done?
see. Click
Oh,
it, open the configuration,
lunch truck is here.
select the resources tab. So let me go back. Click the label, resources tab. And then we have our routes. Okay. Make sure the pod status is running, which I don't think it is right now.
It is not.
Okay, so let's keep a peek on those logs.
So it looks, I mean, since you don't have any logs, it looks like it's still in the deployment process, but that is just my understanding. Let me see if I can look it up and see if there's.
Failed to pull image. Uh-oh.
Oh,
Error reading manifest denied. I need authentication.
This might be because of, well, like maybe we hit a limit with Docker Hub. This is a good question.
Let's see here. View the deployment. Yeah, it doesn't look like we're gonna get. There's no extra bits there. So do you think we got rate limited? Because that
might be. Let's see. Deployment options. Deploy on OpenShift. Oh well. So I mean, we could pull it from Quay. Can you go in to, if you go to actions in the upper right, and then oh no, you know what? Let's go back to topology, or no, yeah, back to the topology, and then if you click on that, and then actions, again, oh no, error image pull. Oh, that's annoying. So if we go to what are we going to edit? Edit deployment. Can
YAML.
Oh God. Can we go to overview?
Overview.
And then auto scale scaling to 1. Yeah, see, maybe it's just easier to delete this and recreate it with a different
YAML, JSON.
Wow, apropos.
Okay, so I want to delete this one.
Yeah, sorry. So we have had this issue.
Knowing full well that we are roughly 10 minutes from the end here.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
F
it. Delete it. Can I say that? Is
F it? Yeah, okay, we can go with F it. Got to do it like Battlestar Galactica. Frack.
Rockets.
Let's try. Okay, so I'm going into add, and then you wanted to use Quay?
Yeah, so there's this, I don't know, where should I send it?
Throw it into Twitter DMs. That's going to be the fastest way.
Twitter DMs. Can we do this guy? This is where I'm pulling it from.
Okay, so we're going to.
That's the article I found, but I'm trying to pull something from.
Okay, so this is what we got, and then for me to pull this, I would do. Oh, you got another link for me that I wasn't looking at.
Sorry, I'm dealing with my own nonsense here. Yeah, so that's the thing that so this is the Docker Hub location, but this is the one that we tried that didn't work, right?
Right. This is the one we pulled and it failed on us.
Don't like it.
So let's talk about what would be different about this particular lab versus the previous one that we just did? So, because I think we're not going to have enough time to solve this.
Curse you, internet gods. Okay, sorry everybody. Yeah, so this is actually a really cool lab because we're taking a public model, and we would
Mm-hmm.
actually be pulling it in and using it to classify image data. We are running into a fairly simple error, but it's something that it's also difficult for me to troubleshoot remotely. But what I can do is I can try to troubleshoot this on my own and come back with the solution, which I'm sure will be really simple. But the idea here is that instead of taking an image that is, instead of building a container image from scratch, given data about a microservice or given a GitHub repo with some JavaScript for an example health application, taking that, building a Docker container or just a container in general, and then deploying it onto Kubernetes, getting a route, and then viewing the application. With this one, we'd actually be taking a publicly available image, in this case from Docker Hub, but it could be from a private registry, some other container registry,
Mm-hmm.
and deploying that directly to the cluster. And that might be something that you would do maybe even more often if you were using this in an enterprise environment. Like maybe you'd have a procedure for building your containers that didn't involve just pulling from GitHub and using an existing container image.
Right, because like I can imagine you would have a container that's like a pre-configured box to handle whatever, like some kind of business logic that needs to be shared across every team or things like that, where you can kind of start there and configure in. Those types of workflows. I mean, I don't use Docker very much, so I'm not sure how configuration works after you get an image, but I can see this one being useful. For example, if I wanted to do any kind of user input, it could be useful if I had a machine learning image that I could call that would look for problematic language or not suitable for work images or things that would at least like help kind of auto mod. So at least flag stuff if it's questionable, so that somebody a person can go look at it and go, oh yeah, that one's fine, but these ones are spam or these ones are inappropriate. We can get rid of those before they go public. And not having to deploy that myself, being able to just grab the like, hey, this is our company's policy. We use this model and these settings to check for content appropriateness. If you are taking any user input, stand up this microservice, send all the content that comes in through it, and then you'll get back an auto modded kind of thing. Like I can see a lot of use cases where that would be helpful.
And also, we kind of got pretty deep into Red Hat OpenShift and the console and the UI and everything in labs 1 and 2. If we hadn't, then this lab would also be an exposition into creating a new application and endpoint through the user interface. But of course, we sort of came ahead and did that already, so it wasn't a surprise to us. But it is also a cool, reminder to check out the Model Asset Exchange. There's a lot of really cool machine learning models out there that should be free for use.
Yeah, that's great. And thank you, Ben, for the sub. 1 year anniversary this month. Thank you for watching this show for a whole year. Wow. Holy crap.
I thought it had only been like 90 minutes. That's awesome.
In the name of Jay, welcome to the Boop crew. Make sure you use that, spam that Boop emote. And with that, I think maybe this is a good point to say, for someone who wants to go deeper here, what is a good next step? I think I will kick us off by saying this lab is probably a great starting point if you want to go and take your first steps with OpenShift and try things out.
I like how every time you paste that link, a bunch of boops come up totally independently, but it really seems like a causal relationship.
So where else should one go if they are interested? We need to go deeper.
No, absolutely. So this is a great lab to get started. And also because we give you a cluster to play around with, I'd encourage you, like, there's a couple different paths you could take. If you're more self-directed, if you want to build something on your own, you'll get this cluster for something like 4 hours or 6 hours or something. Try to deploy your own application on it. Dig around, see what other stuff is out there. Try to build something with a service mesh like Istio, or try to get your CI/CD pipeline up and running in the same way that your organization does it. If you're looking for more like less self-directed but more directed learning, we actually do a ton of workshops of a similar format. We give you a little bit more of a powerful cluster, but our IBM developer Crowdcast channel has a ton of workshops that focus on Red Hat OpenShift. So check that out. Also, Red Hat themselves have a developer education platform. That's
here we go. Get ready.
Really, really cool. I'm getting ready.
Where did they go? What is happening? Okay, that's embarrassing. We got like the beginning of a stampede and then nothing happened. What have I done? I broke it, everybody. I'm so sorry. Oh, there was supposed to be a stampede of corgis jumping across the screen.
Oh, you can do it. Come on, little Kampupa.
Well, that's a tragedy.
That's always the best way to end a Twitch session, is with a tragedy.
Just an utter failure of the robots to bring us joy. Corgo's MIA. Okay, so Crowdcast looks like there are a bunch of things coming in here. Building on Kubernetes, containers in Kubernetes, all sorts of fun stuff there.
Yeah, a lot of these are given by me, so you'll see some duplicated stuff, but mostly that's just creating the clusters. And actually, in those, sometimes you get the clusters for like 48 or 72 hours. So
there you go.
Come
so if you want to
talk about Kubernetes,
it's always a good call if you want to get free stuff. And you should probably hang out with David for more than just the free stuff. But even if you don't like him very much, just go there and get the free stuff.
I love that in the poster for this, it's like your face from your Twitter and my face from my Twitter, but the biggest face by far is my mom's dog, who's just like.
I mean, that's pretty on brand for this particular stream.
Oh, hey, it's happening!
There's the stampede. All right. I don't know what happened last time, but I'm really glad it worked this time because I wasn't going to have time to go fix it. All right, so let me get this out of the way. I don't know why that's popped open. Thanks, Twitter UI, for being so helpful. But this is a good place to go if you want to get more information as it becomes available. Anywhere else that you want to send people?
And then also just check out the Red Hat developer education events. They do stuff. They're still totally separate from IBM. They want to maintain their neutrality, platform independence, all that jazz. And so they have a bunch of great stuff on their site. I don't have a particular thing to point you to because there's so many of them, but a lot of other great knowledge sharing and stuff about Kubernetes and Red Hat OpenShift is actually on their site. They have just free resources, live resources, and then they also have paid training. So if you do hit something where they ask you for $2,500 to do training, just go back a few steps and try to find free stuff.
Okay, so I'm going to drop a link to developers.redhat.com as just a general purpose. Get in there and learn some things. Because I don't know where else to send you. With that, I think we're in good shape. What do you think, Mr. Nugent?
Yeah, it was great. Sorry I made fun of you so much. I mean, I do really like your hat.
Thank you very much. I didn't even notice you were making fun of me, so now I'm retroactively sad. And
apologies to the Maven project maintainers and the Java programming language and just everyone on the streaming channel.
just a general blanket apology. We're so sorry for
computer science,
all of it. No. All right, so that I think is a good stopping point. So just another shout out to our sponsors, or I guess first to our captioner. We've had Rachel here today from White Coat Captioning. Thank you so much, Rachel. And that is made possible by our sponsors, Netlify, Fauna, Hasura, and Auth0, all kicking in to make this show more accessible to more people. And every week, twice a week, we're here streaming. You can watch those captions on the homepage. While you're checking out things, make sure you head over to the schedule. We have just an absolute banger of a schedule coming up. We've got automating tasks with Node CLIs later this week. Ahmad Weiss, if you follow him, you've seen stuff. He does a lot in the community. So we're going to get into some node-powered CLI automation. Then we're getting Pachi in. She's going to teach us HTML and CSS best practices for beginners. Now, this is qualified as for beginners, but I know a lot of devs who really haven't gotten the basics of HTML and CSS because no one ever teaches it in the context of like building real projects. So get in here, learn this. It's going to be so good. We're going to learn about MongoDB Atlas, which is a way to get MongoDB onto a site very, very quickly. We're going to look at Take Shape. We're going to look at StepZen. We're going to play a game called Battlesnake that I'm so excited about because I have literally no idea what this is or how it's going to work, but oh my goodness, are we going to learn? Streaming data models, CSS Grid, Twilio. There's so much, so much. I can't even wait for all these episodes. So make sure you get over there, check these out, get on the list. You can add this to your Google Calendar so that you can always see the episodes when they're happening, or you can follow on Twitch to make sure that you get notified when we go live. Either way, I really hope to see you on streams in the future. With that, we're going to call this thing done and cooked, and we're going to send you over to watch somebody else. So, David, any parting words before we wrap this thing up?
I really hope the Battlesnake doesn't eat any of the corgis.
Gee, I didn't even consider that. This could be a safety issue.
I'm gonna have to watch though, just in case.
All right, we'll have to be careful there. Y'all, thank you so much for hanging out. David, thank you for teaching us today. Chat, thank you for hanging out. Stick around. We're gonna go find somebody to raid, and we will catch you next time.
Thanks, everybody.